Hello and welcome to Reclaim Your Wholeness for Wednesday, July the 5th, 2017. And I'm recording this video out on the rocks near Palm Beach Regional Park in Powell River. And I had the pleasure of spending a fair amount of time here so far, I think about 4 days. And I think we've got a few more days to go, which is super exciting. And my morning practice has been to walk out onto these rocks. So I'll start by giving you just a 360 view of this beautiful spot over my shoulder. There's the rocks, and behind me there is an inukshuk up on the top of the rock, and a great place to sit and meditate. Lots of rocks in behind, and you can see the land, beach out and beyond, and then back to the ocean in behind and the waves crashing into the rocks. So today's topic is one that has been brewing for quite a while, but at the same time it's also an intrinsic part of how I was trained in my coaching practice and the school that I went to. And it's actually a cornerstone of the model of coaching that I use in my practice. And so the video can be called Naturally Creative, Resourceful, and Whole. I've written a blog about this at some point, and you know, it's a topic that I could probably go on at length for, and it's also a topic that somebody asked me to focus on, and so I'm going to do that today. And it just so happens that this week, or after arriving here, had an actual experience that really speaks to this cornerstone in a powerful way. And really, you know, as human beings, we have this really interesting this way of wanting to help people, which is a beautiful thing. And you know, I also look at it as, or you could label it as, fixing. We want to try and help people, and we try to fix them and give them the answers. And you know, the thing is that we are all unique individual beings, and we have our own medicine that will be helpful and useful. And the way to find that medicine is to really connect with that person in front of us. And the problem, as I see it, and you know, the problem is also our path of growth, is that we aren't really connected with ourselves fully, and so we project some of our needs for help and fixing onto other people and situations, and I guess there's probably a bit of ego involved as well. And so I'll just share a story, and then I'll connect back to it and see how it fits. So on our second night of being here, sorry about that, on our second night of being here, we were walking along these very rocks, and we heard the sound of what ended up being a baby seal that was actually wedged up against the rocks and really couldn't get anywhere, and it was really in distress. And you know, it's one of those moments, I think, in nature is probably the best example of naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. And I think that as humans, we sometimes have a tendency to get in and help out when maybe it's not the best thing to do. And then there's other times when really the best thing we can do is help. And in the case of this baby seal pup, turns out that it was a week old. Helping it in the way that we did was actually, you know, the right thing to do. And we got it unwedged, carried it down to the beach, and just left it on its own to find its way again. And you know, didn't call anybody at that point. The seal pup was really seemed to be dehydrated from being in the rocks, perhaps all day. We have no idea. We did some Googling and found out that it's not at all uncommon for pups to be left on the rocks while mom or their pod goes off, you know, hunting and fishing, and then they come back and collect afterwards. And so the next part of the story is that the next morning, after we had, you know, let this pup go on its way and eventually swam off, the next morning I was walking to these exact rocks, you know, just back over my shoulder over there. I discovered the pup again, and it seemed yet again to be distressed, and this time it wasn't wedged, but it was kind of hiding amongst the rocks away from the water. And you know, I tried not to interfere, it didn't feel right. Something felt off, and it felt like this pup that we later called Tanner really did need some help. And so I did what I could to guide it to the water and see if it would go into the water and swim. I thought perhaps that it had, fallen asleep on the rocks and then woken up and been unsure of where it was. And again, not a lot of energy, and kind of felt like it was lethargic and sounded like, in my interpretation, that it was calling for mom. So in the end, we made some phone calls, talked to a local organization that specializes in this area, and based on the information we shared, she was able to determine that this was a very young pup and likely needed help. And so in the end result was that the pup was flown to the Vancouver Aquarium and given help. We found out, like I said, that it was a week old and very much underweight and likely needed our help. From all accounts, it seems like the pup is going to be just fine, and getting the love and care from the folks at the Vancouver Aquarium. Now, this story worked out well, and it seemed like from my opinion and from what we were told by the gal that came to pick up the seal pup, was that we had done the right things and supported in a way that was useful. And so how does that connect to naturally creative, resourceful, and whole? I think there's all sorts of things that we could have done, and which could have included taking the pup back with us, all sorts of things that really wouldn't necessarily have been in the best interest of the pup. And I think we followed our intuition as a collective, and we did what we could to support this pup while at the same time being conscious of what it needed and didn't need. And the very basis of naturally creative, resourceful, and whole is that we have all the pieces of our puzzle. We don't need fixing. We don't necessarily need anything externally other than love and caring and support. I think we have an intrinsic need as human beings to be seen, to be heard, to be loved. And, even though those things don't seem like they're enough, and sometimes we feel like, people need more than that, really just being with someone and being supported and being heard is enough. And energetically with this pup, we kept our distance and just, scented our energy and love and trust that it was going to go back into the water and swim away. And it actually did at the first night. Now, this whole topic also reminds me of a little story about the butterfly, and I'm not sure the origins, but it really does speak to this topic as well. And there's essentially, the way it goes is that there's a fellow walking along and finds a butterfly that is struggling to get out of the cocoon. And so he actually takes it upon himself to help the butterfly by opening up the cocoon and helping it to get out. And what ends up happening is that the butterfly comes out of the cocoon and is just not doing well and eventually dies. And the moral of the story is that the struggle that makes the butterfly stronger. It's the struggle that activates all the blood vessels in the butterfly's wings so that it can eventually fly and be free. And when we interfere and don't allow for that struggle, then the butterfly is unable to fly and dies. And that, again, is kind of a piece of this naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. It's like we need to sometimes go through our struggles on our own in order to find our strength. And in that case, we don't necessarily need fixing, but we do need support and compassion and connection and community to help us through that struggle. So I'm not sure I totally covered everything I need to cover, but I noticed that this video is going on a little bit, and I'd like to keep them kind of short. But I would invite you to really look at what's going on within you when you feel the need to fix or support more in a doing way than in a being way for others. Notice what you project onto animals in nature that you think need help and support. Just quickly, there's a thought of my mind of a bird that hits a window. The bird usually goes into a trauma response, which is freeze. And if you leave the bird long enough, it will fly away in a lot of cases. And you know, as the bird hits the window and we see it, we do everything we can to help it, and that may not be the best thing, because the bird can fly away quite quickly if we just give it a little bit of space first. And we're not always good at that. We don't always have ease around not helping, which is a beautiful part of who we are, and at the same time it can cause harm. So anyway, I hope that I've been able to convey the sort of the essence of this topic, and always happy to engage your comments, as it usually surfaces some more ideas and conversation and dialogue, and that is the point of these videos. So thank you so much for watching, and please, if you have a topic that you'd like me to explore, or there's something that has come up, please write down in the comments, and I'd be happy to engage in dialogue, and happy to be here in this beautiful place and share this video with you, and I wish you all the best this week.